Hi, I'm Keith. I'm the Commercial Partnerships Lead here at OpenCRVS, and I'm your dedicated point of contact for everything related to the Implementation Partner Program. We're an open source. It's totally free to use with no vendor lock-in, and we're officially recognized as a digital public good. It sits alongside systems like MOSIP for identity, DHIS2 for health data. So if you're already working within that ecosystem, OpenCRVS might be a really good fit that fits right into it. Now, there are essentially two ways you can work with us. The first is as a standalone system integrator. You essentially download OpenCRVS source code, you own it, you implement it, you follow our official documentation, you do your best to follow our best practices, and you use the tools and deployment standards, and you reach out to us as and when you need it. You don't need any formal accreditation to do this. You can get started and essentially start delivering solid implementations on your own. And we have many system integrators that work that way with just our core product. The second way to work with us is as an accredited system integrator. This is where you go through our official skills building syllabus and pass an accreditation assessment. It's more rigorous, but it comes with some real benefits. For example, you'll get early access to our product roadmap. You'll get dedicated support from OpenCRVS team of product experts and technical experts. And you'll essentially get some brand exposure through our website and through events that we host. So this is where OpenCRVS might be working directly with a government or speaking directly to a donor, and they essentially come and ask us who is best to implement OpenCRVS in a particular country or territory. So if you're looking for a competitive edge in this space, accreditation is probably the best way to get it. The syllabus itself covers 6 areas, from business and functional architecture through project management and business analysis, all the way through installation, operational support, and community participation. All of the learning materials are freely available. You work through them at your own pace, and when you're ready, you apply for the assessment. More recently, we've moved to cohorts starting about every quarter, every 3 months, and we set a time box of about 3 months from start to finish, but we find most system integrators will get through between 6 and 8 weeks through the full syllabus. I'll cover the program structure, exactly what we look for in accredited partners, the benefits, and also how you apply for it. So let's get into it. I'm going to cover just who we are, a little bit on the product and our mission and vision. I'm going to outline the value and the opportunities for system integrators in the OpenCRVS ecosystem, share a little bit around how you can work with us in either model, both as an accredited partner and a non-accredited partner. And importantly, I'll talk about next steps, that if you do want to apply or you've got more questions, where you go and how you go. In terms of my introduction, I'm the Commercial Partner Lead. My name is Keith Dialwis. Essentially, I'm the dedicated point of contact for all partnership discussions. You may have heard of us or our product, either through your own research or you got a referral. But essentially, I can be your contact, and I'll try my best to answer most of the questions. But if I can't, I'll direct you to the right part of OpenCRVS. I'll help you navigate how OpenCRVS works, both technically, commercially, and operationally. I'm very much focused on enabling the system integrator to thrive within our wider ecosystem and really to how you can scale with us. Transforming how civil registration works around the world. I'll talk a little bit more around where we're deployed further into the presentation. In terms of, we must increase the number of life events recorded, capture high quality and meaningful data, provide trusted source of life events for the whole government, absolutely protect personal data. We recognize and cognizant of the fact civil registry data is among the most sensitive that a government will hold upon its population. And we try to make the system implementation and maintenance as easy as we can, being an open source provider. In terms of harnessing open source technologies for effective civil registration, part of our use case is we designed ourselves very much to be a system that works well in low resource settings. So specifically, when I say low resource settings, somewhere with no or low connectivity, particularly across the African continent, We work completely offline in low connectivity environments. We provide user-friendly features to assist high-quality data capture in terms of if there is gaps in connectivity, an end user is going in and out of connectivity, the solution of the platform works seamlessly across both of those use cases. One thing that we found from kind of spending a lot of time out in the field is the problem around duplicate records. They may not have had the right documentation. They would have come back 2 weeks later. That part of that record would be created, but again, it would be replicated the second time, and essentially 2 records would flow all the way through the system. And we've seen the problems that causes downstream in terms of data integrity. We've got a very powerful matching algorithm that fixes and identifies duplicates right up front. So if the system sees that the record may exist previously, there is a prompt to the end user to really confirm if it is a new record or whether it is a duplicate, and one or both are deleted. Sends registration updates to informants in real time. That's a very important feature. Provides operational statistical dashboarding for performance management. We have an out-of-the-box reporting module that comes with a whole raft of useful reports that governments have spec'd over time. They're available plug and play with OpenCRVS. Also gives you the ability to easily create your own dashboarding and your own visualization. Smart use of technology handles even the largest populations with continuous levels of high traffic. We have worked and we do work with very small states. For example, we've worked with small island states. We recently deployed in the Cook Islands, in Tonga, in the Pacifics, populations of 50, 100,000. But we've also taken this to scale. We're working with the government in the Philippines of millions of people. So this is a system built for scale, but also is a system that if you are looking to implement in a smaller island state or in a country with a smaller population, very flexible and proven in both of those use cases. Protects personal data from all forms of unauthorized access, uses open data standards to provide interoperability and vendor neutrality, works across any device, including tablets and mobile. We use progressive web apps in terms of how users can access the application, sometimes running on very old mobile devices on small screen resolution. Part of our use cases is making the tool and making the platform accessible to everyone. And technology shouldn't be the limiting factor of this. We're super proud of easy implementation, local cost of ownership based on free and non-proprietary software with no vendor lock-ins. This is a completely open source system. In terms of our Git repository, you can follow the directions to run it and install it on your own servers. And there is absolutely no licensing or vendor lock-ins at any time. So the technology cost of ownership in the long term is very low or sometimes nothing at all. So the idea is the core system can be deployed quickly, and there's something that we call country configuration, which are essentially configuration files based on your particular use case for your country. There's a range of cost-effective hosting options. We do deploy in the cloud. I think hyperscalers like AWS and Google Cloud, but also our software can be deployed to bare metal servers or government infrastructure. We tend to do 2 big releases every year, and we'll do intermittent hot fixes and releases. We never charge you for moving to the latest release or downloading the patch. It just gets pushed to our Git, which allows you to make the choice whether you choose to upgrade to the latest version. Our recommendation is you're always running the latest version of OpenCRVS. It often gives you an unlock to new features and functionality, but also bug fixes, both done by the OpenCRVS team, but also contributed to other system integrators and governments themselves. You benefit from that kind of ecosystem of innovation and upgrades, never a charge for that. In terms of the customer experience, if you are interested in the UI UX, I'm not going to go through it in massive detail, but one thing I would say is we've iterated the system very much over the last 6-7 years to be very user-centric. Technology is the easy part or the easier part of a civil registration implementation. The more challenging part is the training, the capacity building, but actually the adoption of the technology. So by making the user experience as easy as we can to healthcare professionals, to civil registrars, to reporting resources that could sit within government offices, the easier that we make it to use. You can see here the overall sort of customer experience flow from the birth in the facility or a community, the declaration, the validation, the ultimate registration with the creation of a birth registration certificate, the legal identification, and then potentially integrating into other systems like MOSIP for identity or other systems like health systems, social protection, and statistics. So we see OpenCRVS playing one of the foundational elements in this journey, but actually interoperability against some of these other big parts of government GovTech stacks. We see the absolute use case, and we've recently done an out-of-the-box integration with MOSIP. If you're thinking or have got implemented MOSIP, there's a very friction-free way, if you were to implement OpenCRVS, to integrate it into your existing MOSIP deployment. If you're looking at civil registry and identity, these two systems particularly work together and are proven across several countries now. If you're looking to integrate into your health systems, into your social protection, into your third-party reporting tools, everything, the core architecture of OpenCRVS are open standards, and we're super proud of interoperability and making it as easy as we can to integrate into proprietary systems that you may own, or for indeed other digital public goods that you may already integrate or run. Just leading into that in terms of that foundational layer, integrating a vital event into a health system, into a national system, or into a unique identity system. Similarly, if you run or are thinking of running a national population registry, there's an optional layer there that you may be using or looking to procure at the same time. And what does it allow in terms of government service delivery? Everything from financial inclusion, social safety nets, employment, voter registration, healthcare, travel documentation, education, and SIM registration. So that kind of full life cycle for a high quality GovTech stack, and OpenCRVS being a foundational component to this. And just touching upon going back to OpenCRVS as a digital public, for those of you that don't know what a digital public good, also known as DPG, we're essentially officially recognized by the Digital Goods Alliance, DPGA, for meeting open source privacy and equity standards. So because we're open source and we know our platform manages some of the most sensitive data that a government will hold, we are held to the highest standards in terms of data privacy and data security. And this is now backed by being designated by the DPGA as a digital public good. We're designed to inclusive digital transformation, aligning with the wider principles of DPI. Complements foundational systems, as I mentioned. We're developed for global public benefit, not private ownership. We are a non-profit, incubated from an NGO many years ago. We do run in isolation as our own entity, as a UK non-profit. And I'll come on to where we're funded from, but we've got a couple of big donors who essentially are helping support us, not just develop the product, but also we have an ambition that OpenCRVS serves 1 billion registrations and births in the coming years. And we're becoming trusted by governments and UN agencies and digital partners across the globe. And I'll talk a little bit around who we've deployed to shortly. As I mentioned in the intro, 2 ways of working with us: system integrator, so that is no official accreditation. You can support your own implementations. You can download, modify. You can commercialize the product if you so wish to. We would advise you to follow our best standards and deployment standards. We see standalone system integrators fall into problems if you take our source code and try to kind of deploy it in a non-standard way. We follow certain technical practices in terms of deployment, both at the server side, but also how you deploy. So we would recommend, even if you aren't accredited or you don't know us directly, you follow our official documentation. But there's actually, if you follow this route, there is nothing stopping you at the end of this call downloading. You may have already downloaded our software and essentially deploying it. What we encourage is the Accredited System Integrator program. We call it the ASI. So these are where you're officially recognized by OpenCRVS for meeting quality and capacity and compliance benchmarks. You essentially gain access to exclusive support, early releases, and from time to time we do co-marketing opportunities. We can refer you, an accredited partner, directly to governments. One thing we often do is we work with governments in the first instance, so it could be rolling out a proof of concept or initial kind of MVP. But at some point, governments want a full system integrator to do the full integration, and that could be over many phases, over many years. Often the first question is who can deploy? And obviously our first port of call is our body or a quorum of accredited system integrators, of which now there are 6 growing to 10 later this month. So it's not uncommon that a donor may come to us with a particular country or use case, and we will engage a system integrator to do certain projects funded by donor system integrators and sometimes governments. The accreditation program, why become accredited? You want to stand out in a growing ecosystem. The ecosystem is growing quickly. By having the badge and going through the capacity building, it will make you stand out. Importantly, and what we see is governments will trust accredited providers, and global development partners are looking for proven delivery capacity. And you access exclusive benefits to give your team technical and commercial edge. So the capacity building itself isn't just designed around OpenCRVS, which you would imagine a lot of it is OpenCRVS related, but there's a wider element around building sort of capacity and expertise in civil registry. You get early access to product roadmaps and releases, dedicated support, bit of brand exposure, joint funding opportunities, and access to partner-only learning resources. There is a criteria in terms of looking for an ASI, so we don't accept everyone on the program. We look for system integrators that have got proven delivery capacity and commitment to open standards, ideally demonstrating an understanding of the civil registry domain challenges. That isn't a prerequisite, but obviously if you've worked in civil registry deployments globally before. And we also look at where you operate. We try to match it where demand is coming from in terms of our wider ecosystem and pipeline. We looked for strong DevOps infrastructure and localization capacity, and also an alignment and commitment to our standards to yours. We take on about 6 new accredited SIs into each cohort. The next cohort is starting in May 2026, with the following one to start probably around August, September, with a further 6. Why do we need OpenCRVS implementation partner programs? What we really want to do to get to our ambition of pushing high quality national scale implementations around the world, we know that we can't, and also our model is very much focusing on the core product itself, and we have a long roadmap. We want to make the system easier to deploy, more configurable. We've had a big release 1.9 recently. We're doing a big refactor as part of 2.0, which will drop later in 2026. But we see our ecosystem being the implementation arm of OpenCRVS. So an incredibly important part of, our sort of ambition to, kind of scale OpenCRVS around the world. And by handpicking high quality implementers, we see that as a strong enabling factor. And also, just to go back to, we want to mitigate the risk of low quality implementations that leave countries with a version of OpenCRVS that isn't fit for purpose. So what is super, super important to us is, because we're open source and anyone can roll it out, we want OpenCRVS deployments to meet a certain standard. It isn't so much who delivers it, but also, reputationally, we want the very best providers that know the system, are experienced in it, delivering high quality implementation. That's good for governments. That's also good for OpenCRVS, but it's good for you as system integrators to not be learning on the job in terms of real life deployments, which is why we strongly encourage system integrators to look at the accreditation program. What is the actual program itself? So it's really split into two parts. There's a skill building syllabus that we deliver over a Google Classroom. It's self-paced. It goes through several modules sequentially, and then there's a final accreditation assessment. So there's a case study that's given right at the start of the program, and as you work through the assessments, you're essentially deploying OpenCRVS to a fictitious African nation based on real requirements. So at the end, we'll sit down with you, we'll see what you've deployed based on that case study, and we'll mark you based on what you've done, how you've done it, why you've done it in some instances, in an environment that looks as close to a real life deployment as we can get it without it being real life. Who's the program for? So for system integrators, whether you be international or local, government digital teams, and institutions providing regional capacity for DPGs and DPI. We have a good combination of all of those currently accredited. The syllabus itself, the objective defines a set of key topics that must be mastered in terms of being deemed to be successful. You can successfully deploy and configure and deploy OpenCRVS in a country context. We have official documentation, and I'll drop links to all of this material sort of accessible to anyone watching this video. There's a lot of information on our website, but also you can see us on GitHub, and there's a GitHub discussions where a lot of both accredited partners, but also non-accredited partners can raise technical issues directly there, and we're pretty quick at coming back on those. In terms of just really quickly what's in the syllabus: business and functional architecture, project management, business analysis, installation of country deployments, operational support, and community participation. What's the assessment itself? So as I mentioned, it's a presentation at the end. There's typically 5 assignments that we will request you to do through the accreditation, and we'll see at the end of those in a final presentation and assessment how far you've got along, and we will mark you based on prerequisites of marking against each of those sections. And again, what are the benefits of being accredited implementation partner? You can use the OpenCRVS logo. You'll be listed on our website globally. You'll get global visibility, the use of the OpenCRVS communication channel, exclusive training by the OpenCRVS team, and you can make requests for bug fixes and additional features directly to us. And just to underscore why we push the accreditation program, we really want to de-risk low quality implementation. It may not properly be configured to meet country requirements, forks of OpenCRVS code, and hence may become unsupported in the long term. We want to make sure you're using the best security practices, and any vulnerabilities are mitigated by following our core recommended documentation and deployment standards. Introduces defects which may lead to end user dissatisfaction, poorly supported and maintained, but also we don't really want silos to exist within live government. So we really strongly encourage you to become accredited if you're going to go down a full deployment for a government. You can, I'll give you a link here. We'll do a quick survey of who you are. We'll ask maybe about 10 or so questions. We'll then come back and we'll do a call with me, and we'll talk a little bit more about yourselves and what you plan to get out of it. And then usually you'll tell me roughly when you'd like to join the cohort, and we'll make a decision formally from there. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you so much for your time. Again, our documentation, links to apply are all. I'm actively looking for accredited system integrators across the world, but particularly in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Southeast Asia, but wider afield system integrators based anywhere that have localization expertise in one or more of those regions would be great. We have a pipeline of about 15 countries we're currently talking to, and looking to find system integrators, accredited providers that can serve these government implementations. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this has been useful, and I will drop some additional information out to you guys in terms of next steps, but please do reach out if you've got any questions.